This module is about configuring your website. More specifically, it's about some of the configurations you can do to your web server and some external configurations to use a custom domain. When you visit a website, you often do so by entering the domain name of the website without specifying any particular page. That brings you to the root of the website, which is a particular page. The reason that occurs is because most web servers honor a certain naming convention, whereby the default document for the home page of the site is usually called index.html or index.htm or default.html or some variation. This isn't any kind of rule, it's just become a standard naming convention on the web. When a framework is used to generate the pages on the website, like PHP or ASP.NET, that document name will often include the standard file extension associated with the framework. So it could be index.php or index.aspx. Because the web server is aware of the framework being used, you usually don't need to do anything to configure that minor change. But you can actually configure any document you want to be the default page when a user visits your website by only entering the domain name. The way to do that varies on different web servers. So let's look at some examples. First, we'll start with Microsoft Internet Information Services. You saw this one earlier in the course. Here's a situation where you have access to the physical or virtual web server, and you're able to open the IIS Manager software either on the server or by connecting remotely. When you're scoped to the root of the web server, there's an icon here that brings you to the default documents that have been configured for the whole server. Each site on the web server will inherit these file names. You can see there are default.htm and default.asp, as well as index.html. You can override these defaults at the website level. Recall that a website in IIS is a level of configuration for the sites underneath it, so there's a link for the default documents here as well, and this will take precedence over the defaults for the entire server. It says the documents are inherited, and it also says they're listed in order of priority. So if there are two documents at the root of the site, one called default.htm and one called index.html, default.htm will be used because it's higher in the priority list. Let's add a new document name. If we wanted the About page to be the default document for the site, we could add it. It's added to the top of the list, but if it's not found, then the web server will search for a document that has one of the other names in the list. We can change the order of importance here too, and the new document name gets moved down the list. Let's look at how this is done in GoDaddy. The plan that I chose in GoDaddy is a Linux hosting plan, and GoDaddy uses Apache web servers. The standard on Apache is to create a file called htaccess. The file name starts with a period and has no file extension. So if you're creating the file in Notepad on Windows, as I am, you would enter the file name in quotations to prevent it from getting the default txt file extension. I've already created that file here on my file system. Let's just open it up and take a look. htaccess can be used for many different configuration options. The default document is just one of them. And creating this file at the root of your website will override the defaults for the web server. So I've added the attribute name directory index and used the file name about.html. So this will become the default document for the site. If I wanted to specify another document in case about.html isn't found, I can do that by just adding a space and the document name. Let's leave this one document and let's look at the website that's running in GoDaddy now. I've configured DNS so the custom domain name points to the IP address of the GoDaddy web server. I'll show you how to do that later in this module. If I go to the root of the website, you can see that it's the home page, which is called index.html. Now let's go over to FileZilla, where I'm already connected to the GoDaddy server using FTP. On the left side are the files on my local file system. The htaccess file doesn't exist on the GoDaddy server yet, so let's upload it to the root. Now let's go back to the running website and take off the web page name so we can navigate to the root of the site without a document specified. And now we're brought to the About page. We can verify that by clicking on this link. The last example I'll show you is how to configure Microsoft Azure App Services to control the default document that's served. I'm inside the app service that we configured earlier for the website. If I go down to Configuration, there's a tab here that says Default Documents. There are already several document names configured. You can see that they follow the standard naming convention, although there's a default.aspx and index.php in the list. We can add another document from the top. and we could remove any of these existing documents by clicking on the trash can icon on the right. So you can see that web servers use standard naming conventions to control the default document that's served when you visit the URL without any web page specified. You can also override that in configuration settings for the web server or for the particular site, and the way you do that is different for each web server. In the rest of this module, you're going to learn how to configure the icon to display in the Browser tab for your website. Then you're going to learn about how to purchase a custom domain name through a domain name registrar. I'll show you a demo of how to do that, and then how to configure DNS to point your custom domain name to the IP address of your hosted website.